Hey, what up? Thank you so much for clicking this video. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer from South Africa. This is a series of videos on code elasticity where I'm hoping to help myself first and you as a developer on how to migrate from code to a successful tech startup or at least functional application to improve your life, of course. So what is code elasticity? If you take a rubber band and scratch it, you will realize that it can stretch longer than a paper. If you take a paper and try to stretch it, it will quickly break. This is what I have observed in the coding industry. Our own code is not elastic. It cannot stretch enough such that it can improve our lives. It can become a tech startup. It can become a viable application, like all the applications that we use now, be it professionally or maybe for media and entertainment, your social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, or even Sage Accounting or QuickBooks or Zero and others. So the reason why we are not getting there, I believe it's because our code is not elastic enough. Our code is like a paper, it's rigid. When it's time for it to scale, it breaks. Hence, most developers and YouTube coders, they don't have the application or products that they own. We get into YouTube industry for only being institutions, meaning that we teach others to code, but we neglect the value and the treasure that is in the coding or software development industry, which is number one, having a voice in the industry. Because I believe if I was Mark Zuckerberg, I've invented Facebook or created Facebook, and now it's successful. I think if we talk outside the scope of money, I think to me that is a voice that is making yourself heard in the industry. So it's one of those things that are valuable, if I can be honest, outside the scope of money, to have impact, to improve other people's life, to have a voice in the industry that you love. So in this series of videos, I am going to discuss those things. So when I'm saying our code is not elastic enough, this is what I mean. Number one, as developers, we are too technical. We are function oriented. We are task or function driven. The only question that is important to us, does it work? As long as it doesn't have bugs and it works and it's functioning, kaboom, we are happy. And when we are even learning from YouTube channels, we are learning techniques on how to, for instance, how to upload a PHP form, how to create an Android app, how to deploy an app, and how to declare an array, and so forth. That is not wrong. Everything that I've mentioned is absolutely right for developers because you want to learn. Maybe you want to be hired as time goes by. But the problem comes when you start to ask yourself why, as a developer myself, I don't have a product that I am owning. It doesn't matter if it's successful or not successful, but why I don't have it. What's the problem? Why can't I create my own tech startup like Google, like Amazon, like Facebook, your Snapchats and your Instagram and your Twitters of this world? So in this series, I'm going to explain in details why is not that happening, because I only noticed this when I started to create my own music application, which is Industry Plug. And I realized that as a developer, there is a lot that I don't know. And what I don't know is not hidden in big companies like on Meta, on Facebook, on Amazon. It's not there. It's just in me to be conscious of and to be aware of and solve the problem. And one of those problems is that the code is not elastic. When you scratch it, when you scale it to a company, to a platform, it breaks. So I'm going to help you. Also, I'm helping me at the same time to fix those mistakes and to highlight to you the things that make a code like not to be elastic, a code to be rigid, why your code cannot become a tech product. I'm Nathim Singati, the designer and developer. If you feel like this content is adding more information to you, please consider subscribing so that you can be notified when I'm releasing another video on the same topic on code elasticity. Thank you so much. Have you ever heard of the guy by the name of Nikola Tesla? Nikola Tesla was a genius. Nikola Tesla was a superman, a superhuman. He invented a lot of things, where I could mention electricity. I think he's the one who came up with the alternating current, competing with Thomas Edison at that time, who I believe he was into research on or coming up with development and improvement on direct current. So Tesla came up with a different way of doing things. Obviously there was some sort of a conflict between him and Edison, but in the end Tesla won because he was right. He was a genius. Also, it is believed that Tesla is one of the early adopters or the conceivers of the wireless technology. The Bluetooth that we're using now and the wireless, the Wi-Fi that we are using now, Tesla is one of those guys who conceived it very, 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 very early, a long time ago. He had an idea. Obviously, I think he didn't get much time to some sort of finish and complete his project around that technology, but I think he left some patents, some scripts and ideas, diagrams and designs that I think there are some similar patterns in the current technology, which is the wireless technology. But the reason why I'm bringing Tesla in the picture in this code elasticity thing or quest is that number one, I don't want to say Nikola Tesla died broke, because I'm not a big fan of chasing money rather than your own value as a human being. Hence, I'm not going to use the word broke because it has got some sort of a different meaning in our ears. So it always feels like, okay, I'm promoting billions and I'm not on that. So he died. His standard of living when he died didn't match up his own profile and also his own, what can I say, his own intelligence. At least when you watch that documentary, please, you can search it on YouTube, Nikola Tesla. I forgot the title because I watched it a long time ago. I think it was 7 years ago. So when he died like just a man living below standard. He was feeding pigeons. He didn't have money for survival. He relied on people to help him. So basically all of his inventions were taken by the business people, investors, and I'm not sure, what can I say, business driven people. I would like to assume they took advantage of him. And then they took all his invention and all his intellectual property, and they gave him some small amount of money, and then he ran out of money, and that was it. So basically he didn't like live up to his own intelligence, obviously not intentionally, but I see some similarities between Tesla's story and us as developers, if I can be honest, because we are the guys who can program the computer and tell the smartphone what to do, but at the same time we don't have tech startups. Like we don't have products that we own. Maybe it's my ignorance, or obviously I don't know much about YouTube and the world in general, but I haven't heard of a story of a YouTube coder who is now owning Fiverr, owning YouTube, owning whatever. I haven't heard of that. All the people who came up with some of these social media platform and what can I say, these big tech giant today, it's either they were a student in a certain university and they dropped out to follow their own passion, or it's two guys who were working for Facebook and then they were laid off and then they decided to start their own thing, or they intentionally resign on big companies and they started their own thing. But I haven't heard of a guy who says, look, I've started whatever that I'm doing from coding YouTube and learning from coding, and then from then I created my own thing when I was professional enough in coding. So I never heard of that story. So looking at Tesla's story, obviously I'm not saying we are being taken advantage of by big companies. That's not what I'm implying, but I'm implying that it's possible to be smart and intelligent but miss the important aspect of life. Like it's important to take life holistically. So what I'm bringing on the table is that us as developers, we miss some of the key important things into creating applications that people love, application that will improve our lives, application that will help the world in general, application that will some sort of become these big tech companies. We miss that aspect. I think that's what also Tesla did. Like I can say he was more of a true genius, of course, but he neglected a lot of aspects about life. Particularly, I can say in his case, the business aspect. Let's say maybe if he would have found an associate, somebody who's more interested in business early in his life, maybe his life would have turned like other way around or the other way. However, I'm not like some sort of imposing that Tesla was supposed to have a mansion and have nice cars and whatever. Remember, life appeals to an individual. You are conscious of yourself, you know where you are going. So I'm not also implying that he was not fulfilled. Maybe according to him, his life was the best life. Obviously, I think that's what he is thinking, but I'm just trying to give a different perspective that also there is an aspect that he could have taken care of. So this story is more like similar to us. We are missing this part between the code that you write and a tech startup, or at least an app like TikTok and Facebook. There is a space there that you are supposed to occupy. But unfortunately, us as developers, we are more about coding, we are more about functionality. For instance, one of the things that makes us not to reach that step, we really don't understand the word MVP, minimum viable product. We don't really understand the essence of that, because if we understood that, at least we were supposed to say, I have released 3 application, 4 version in each, and it failed. I don't mind us failing, but at least publishing, doing something. So when we talk about MVP, we are talking of a small piece of application or code that is not perfect, but it's functional. It does what it's supposed to do. So when you talk of MVP, you are talking of, do not be obsessed with your code. Quickly solve one problem in this bigger picture. If we're talking about Spotify, just solve the streaming part of it, where people listen to music and they upload the music, and that's it, and then release the application. As developers, we don't do that because we are intelligence driven. We are like more like Tesla. We want to, what can I say, to go deep with our intelligence and show the world that we are capable of complicated and sophisticated algorithm. Hence, we can't even put a product out there. So I think that's the one of the things that makes us not to some sort of see the other aspect of the whole industry, because the industry is too big. And what I'm realizing is that as I'm creating my own application, Industry Plug, a music streaming platform, is that it takes a different mentality to rise from a code to a startup company. And an introduction to that is the business aspect and branding. So that is it for this video. I hope you really are now starting to get the picture of where I'm going to with this series. I want to help me and I want to help you to migrate from code to a tech startup, or at least a functional application. Otherwise, I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. If you feel like this video is adding value to your overall understanding, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to be part of the community, obviously I need people who can assist me with front end, with back end, with all other things, because now that I'm creating my own application, I'm starting to see that I'm moving from front end, back end, database, PHP security, of which it's becoming a lot of work. So if maybe you are interested in just helping, lending a hand, of which lending a hand, it's something that I'm open to also as a developer, but obviously some people, they don't really ask for help. But if there was someone who was maybe saying, I need somebody to do a front end for me to improve my own portfolio, I would like to do and help that person with. And also that's why in my own website I'm going to have a channel, a page where I give away templates, HTML templates that I designed long time ago for my own skills, and so that somebody can just download it and use it. So if you're interested in just helping me, lending a hand, maybe you've got your front end skills or you've got some knowledge that you think you can share with me, I'm here on the YouTube platform to grow as well. So you are more than welcome to hit me up on an email, and then maybe I will tell you how far I am with the project. Otherwise, for me, Matthew Msingati, thank you so much. See you on the next one of this well. So in this video, I'm going to discuss one thing that prevents you from having an elastic code, a code that can scale to a successful app like Facebook and WhatsApp. One of those things is that, or it happened way back, even before you get into coding industry. Like even before you notice anything about coding or learn anything about coding, you are already in a trap, and that is how you learn coding. As YouTubers or YouTube coders, we are too technical about coding. Is that wrong? Of course, that's not wrong, because that's what we specialize in. We help people to understand code better, or help them to learn to code, or explain or break down different concepts. I do understand that. But at the same time, there is less higher level thinking and thought process and frameworking in coding channel. This is what I mean. There are few channel that talks about, let's say, what can I say, corporate coding. I'm not sure if this word exists in the software development industry or even in English in general. But when I'm saying corporate coding, this is what I mean. Coding for production, not for the sake of learning. Obviously, most of our tutorials, we always say that, okay, I am teaching you this and how to do it, but this is not for like production, but it's for helping you to get the idea. I do understand and I appreciate that, and I thank YouTubers for doing that. But also in the industry, we need production level code, high quality code, no matter how complicated it is, or no matter how, what can I say, technical or difficult it is, but we need that code. So when you get into coding from YouTube channels and even school, you are not taught that, because I've got a diploma in software development. I've been taught object-oriented programming and IT, but there are things that I feel like I wish I could have learned this in school, because it's so vital. So even when you get into coding, you are already on the minus, below zeros, you are on the negative, because the way you learn to code, it creates your own code to be rigid. It solidifies it. It's not elastic enough to stretch and expand into becoming a successful tech company. This is what I mean by that. We teach you as YouTube coders or the academics, we teach you coding and the technical part of it, but we don't teach you the concept. We don't teach you the architecture. We don't teach you the strategy. We don't connect the pieces of the puzzle together. For instance, if I were to teach someone to code, number one, I will first teach them the essence of programming, which is problem solving. Be it you solve a problem in real life, in accounting, or in whatever, but you need to have a clear understanding of what problem solving is. and in its essence is making the most out of what you have. If you are able to take few things and involved a lot of thought process and come up with a solution without necessarily seeking more resources and other external things, I think that's the essence of programming. It's problem solving. So when you get into YouTube, you are taught how to declare variables and functions. But when you scale, when you get into a level whereby you've got a code already and you want to, what can I say? You want it to be an application, and you want to expand and solve problem, you will find out that you are having some difficulties because you are too functional and you are too technical. So number one, I would say the problem solving skills. Number two, coding channels, we don't teach you to think in principle. Like for instance, the design pattern, the essence of object-oriented programming, the functional object-oriented programming, not just declaring classes and instantiating them, but having the skill to make your life easier, to write clean code with programming, design pattern, solid principle, and also the try principle. So we don't really teach that. And when it comes to teaching those, you can even teach those without coding. You can, without even opening Visual Studio Code and code. Those are conceptual, high level ways that drills you into thinking in terms of principle. So by the lack thereof of those things, we then fall into a trap of writing a code that is solid, a code, number one, that is not able to scale, a code that is only understood by you, a code that you cannot plug someone else in for scaling. Let's say you've created a very successful or functional and a complete a competitor of WhatsApp, but then you need to find other people to help you. But based on the way you have designed and structured or architectured your own code, you can't plug other people, therefore you cannot scale. So we even fail without even noticing it, without even studying. The way we get into coding, we are taught and we are drilled into writing a solid code, a code that is not inclusive, a code that you cannot plug in a front-end developer and a back-end developer and a database guy, a database guru, whereby you'll find out both these people, they are looking at different aspects of your code and they are not confused, they are content, they are happy, they can work from what you have designed because there are rules of engagement. In terms of the front end, there are rules of engagement, so they know what to do without even touching the back end, without even communicating to the back end guy. The database designer, they know what they can do and how they can improve your code without even contacting the rest of the team, of which that will mean that your code is not coupled together. So this is one of the things that I think plays a major role on making your code solid, not elastic. So now when it comes to you have to scale, it's impossible for you to scale. That even affects you personally. It affected me personally because I have been writing a lot of code that when I'm going back to it tomorrow, I really don't understand what's going on. When I'm trying to change the user interface, you'll find that I have to take 5 hours trying to redesign and declare variables and change functions, of which that slows down my progress. So one of the things that hinders us from creating tech startup or from creating a code that can scale, we don't think in principle and design in frame. So if you are interested in joining me in what I'm busy with now, I'm busy with a music streaming application, which is Industry Plug. Obviously, I'm alone. It takes a lot from me. I have to jump to the back end, I have to create a database, I have to create the front end. So if you've got a skill that you think you can contribute with, please hit me up in the email. I've got a space for you. We can discuss. I can give you the things that I'm struggling with so that you can quickly help me with, and that was it. And obviously guys, I'm not saying I'm going to pay anybody. I'm just a designer from South Africa, a freelancer. So in case you are looking for that to exercise your skill, at least to work on a problem that didn't come from you, because sometimes, most of the times, we create our problems which are easy for us to solve. So that I'm open for that. You can just send me an email with your details and what you think you can assist with. Let's jump to the main focus, to the main thing. So in this video, obviously, I'm continuing with a series called Code Elasticity, where I'm helping myself and also helping you to create an elastic code, a code that can scale into a successful tech company like Facebook. One of the important things that I think I have missed until until I attempt to create my own music platform was a functional code versus a product code. Okay, let's talk about a product. Do you own a phone? Do you own a mobile device? Do you own a computer? Do you own a sneaker? That is a product. Then, in terms of code, a functional driven code doesn't have some sort of the characteristics and the features of a product. And unfortunately, whether you are aware or we like or we don't like, applications are product in its essence. That's why, as part of the development team or the company, there will be a product manager. So the code that you are writing need to be structured in such a way that it becomes a product. And most of our code is just a functional code. So let me just explain the difference between a product-driven code and a function-driven code. A function-driven code, the developer or the programmer, it's all about it works. Like, if I can upload the file and there is no error, kaboom, I'm happy as a developer. It works. But a product-driven code, it solves the user's problems. Well, it might happen it works without errors, but the product manager will be like, well, it doesn't solve the user's problems. So programmers or people in the functional code space, they are running away from bugs. They are running away from bugs, let's say from problem. If the code doesn't work, it's a problem to us as developer. We are stressed, we work overnight, we want to make sure that it works, it functions as intended. But when it comes to the product side, those guys are looking for problems. They are looking for problems to solve, because they know that if they can solve a problem for the user, boom, that's a big win. That's why TikTok has managed to boom while still other tech giants were here, like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, in the midst of them. But TikTok was able to thrive and be successful and expand simply because a problem was solved. Okay, so in the technical part, we are avoiding problem. We want to solve it quickly and then we are done, as long as it works. But in this side, those guys are looking for those problems. They are asking clients and customers, what is your problem? So do you see that there is a functional code and there is a product-driven code? A functional code is centered around the functionality, and not necessarily about the functionality, but does it work? Whatever that I'm doing, if it's uploading, does it upload? If it's a form, does it submit? And that's it. But in this side, we know that this, what we're developing, is going to be used by someone. How can it be better? How can it be usable? How can it be understandable? How can I write it in such a way that it adds value? It helps the person to get what they are looking for. So those are different ways of thinking, and as developers, we are failing to come up with product. We only write a code. Say that as a developer, I'm picked up by a so-called tech giant billionaire, or you name them, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, or whoever, a guy that has got the means to help me. But now the challenge is, at this point in time, they will see a code that is not ready to become a product. How is he going to say that the code is not ready to become a product? Step number one, it doesn't solve a problem. Does it work? Yes, because us as developers, we what about it works, you know. I think as developers, we get into coding to prove to ourselves that we are smart. We are always looking for means and opportunities to prove our intelligence, to exercise it, to become more sophisticated. Hence, we are coming up with products, with code that is functional. Now, this tech billionaire or tech giant will ask me, Matthew, how can I help you? No, I've got this code. The first thing that he might say is that, what problem are you solving? No, Dropbox really does work, but this one works better. Yes, but what problem are you solving? And who are you solving this problem for? So that's the mentality that we must get into as coders and YouTube coders in order for us to make it into at least having successful applications, or at least deploying an application, or at least we can position ourselves for maybe investors. Because if we're not solving a problem, then it becomes a problem, because it means like we are just coding for fun. So the other thing between a functional code and a product driven code, let's just talk about the product as I have started with. If you are having a smartphone, you are having a product, and that smartphone is solving a problem, and that smartphone has been designed in such a way that it helps you, it's easy to understand, it's easy to use. It's like it helps you to solve a problem, and it solves a particular problem. It's very specific and clear into the problem that it solves. But with us, in terms of coding, if I can be asked to do an MVP for a social media application, as a coder yourself, a technical coder, the guy who write code, you think a lot and you involve a lot of things in your code. The problem is you are not solving a problem, you are just coding. So if I could be asked to create a social media app by this tech billionaire, I will create a social media app that share posts, that share statuses, that is able to upload and download videos, that will be able to update photos. I'm all about features. I'm all about adding things. Whereas in the product driven mentality or product driven code, there is an architecture, some sort of a feature architecture. What is the core functionality of our application? The core functionality of our application is to connect people, okay? Do we do that very well, no matter how simple it is? On the other side, coders, they don't like simple things. I am a developer too. I am struggling to come up with an MVP of the application that I'm developing, because whenever I get into a code, I make it complicated, I make it sophisticated, I'm thinking about a lot of features, and most of that comes from the subconscious. Since I'm used to Spotify, I'm used to other music streaming application, automatically my mind, when it comes to code, I want to implement those features so that I can feel like I can take down Spotify, or at least I am in that level where I can create Spotify. Whereas that's not about it. And I'm realizing as I'm developing my own application that if I would have known this earlier, maybe I would have been far by now. And maybe I would have even asked somebody else to do the code. But because of I was so obsessed with code, I didn't know that there is so much work for me to do besides coding. And what will that be? Building the product, rearranging the code in such a way that it becomes a product. What is a code that is a product? Number one, a code that is a product, it's a code that solves a problem. Somebody has a pain, and this product, this code, is helping that person. And if it does that very well, that must be one person. Obviously, coders are not going to understand this, but people who are business inclined, they will understand what I mean. Whenever you solve a problem, you don't solve a problem for many people. You solve a problem for one person, because that person represents a community. So when you think about your persona, who's the ideal person for this product, it's only one person, because you want to specifically solve that problem. Obviously, that person represents a community. There are people who think the same way as that person is thinking, who are struggling with the same problems. Hence, your code doesn't have to cater for everyone. So when it comes to a product, it solves a problem, and that problem is for one person, and it masters that. And then after that, not immediately, after that, once it has done that successfully, and then it will start to look for other features. In terms of a product driven code, these are called features, I can say. We strictly call these features. I'm going to create a music app that is going to have this feature and this feature and this feature. But in a product driven environment, you will be told that these are sub products. For instance, let's talk about FedEx. FedEx is a big company, and they are into the transport business. But also, when they were successful in that courier service industry, they then expanded to other industries. That's the same approach that is taken by a product-driven code. These are not called features, but they are products in themselves. We've got Facebook, yes, as a big company, as a giant company, but it has got products like gamings, like statuses, like all other things that we call features, because those things that we call features are not just extra functionality that the designer felt like, I can make this cool by adding this. No, there are people who are hired for those things. For instance, if Facebook might think that they want to create an intensive photo editing feature, they obviously have to hire a specialist, somebody maybe who has worked for, what can I say, Figma, let's say, since Figma is more like a graphic design application or prototyping application, so it deals with pixel in most of the time, and also it's online, so cropping, removing background, and all those things. So it will be beneficial for them to find somebody who has worked for Figma and bring them in for this product. They don't call it a feature necessarily, it's a product, because maybe because of that product they might hire other people or other team. So do you see that photo manipulating feature inside Facebook might act like a mini company inside Facebook, because it will achieve a lot of things, and in that feature an app might be born, or it might be some sort of the beginning for a certain stream of income. So once you become functional driven, you think of features, you think of adding these things, and you are careless about the hierarchy, about the architecture of these features. And also, your code does a lot of things such that if you can deploy it and publish it, people might be confused as to what it does, because you are all about features. But when you are product driven, you think about, number one, solving a problem, and number two, having an architecture, a structure onto how do you add your features, because you know that these features themselves, they are product. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. This is my YouTube channel, Coded Design, where I teach coding and graphic design. If you feel like you might want to take part into the program that I'm developing, Industry Plug, it's a music streaming platform, please check my email and we can talk. If you can assist with the front end, I will be glad for that, because now I'm swamped up, I'm doing a lot of things, and I feel like I'm not really solving the problem that I want to solve. Thank you so much. See you on the next one. What is the most resilient parasite? A virus, a bacteria, or an intestinal worm? An idea, resilient, highly contagious. Once an idea is taken hold of the brain, it is almost impossible to eradicate. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks right here. That is a monologue by Leonardo DiCaprio from the movie Inception by Christopher Nolan. Inception is a movie about a dream in a dream. In its essence, it's about planting an idea into someone else's mind and it grows naturally as if it's their own. How does that have got something to do with what we are discussing, code elasticity, helping a developer to transition from just mere code to a successful tech company like Google, Facebook, and whatever? It's all about the idea, okay? So what we are missing or what we are lacking as coders or as developers or as freelancers is the intangible value of a product. In the previous video, we've discussed product conscious code or product driven code versus a functional code. So you must treat your code as a product, just like a sneaker, just like Samsung, just like how Apple treat their own device. So with that being said, a product has got an intangible value, and as developers, as a coders, not only we don't know much about that, I think we care less about that. Remember us, we are functional driven. We want to be lost in code and we want to code. But at the same time, we are surprised why we are not coming up with big ideas like functional application that people love, that has got a lot of users, like Spotify, like your YouTubes, your Twitters. We don't understand why we don't come up with those applications, and it's simple. We don't understand the intangible value of our code, which I would like us to label as a product. So a product has an intangible value. And also, this information, obviously, I didn't have it until I worked as a brand strategist. If you don't know much about me, I have been window shopping careers and jobs. To be honest, I went to school to study IT, and the reason why I studied IT, I wanted to learn software development, not necessarily to get a degree or a diploma or whatever. That's why when I was done with IT, I left that diploma in school and I went ahead and created my own applications. So I didn't go to school necessarily to attain that, but I wanted to solve a problem. So after that, I went on into other industries. I worked as a graphic designer professionally, and I worked as a brand strategist. So working as a brand strategist, I've learned so much about the intangible value of a product. If I might quote Rory Sutherland, I think he's the vice president of Ogilvy, United States or UK. He says the next revolution is not the industrial revolution, but it's psychological revolution. What does he mean by that? He means that there is so much that we can do with our psychology as it relates to marketing, advertising. Okay, this globe, I think. Let me just hide it a little bit. Okay, so there is so much in value in psychology as it relates to advertising, marketing, and branding. He continues to say that you can change the taste of a product without even touching the product, but working on the psychology. Hence, he said the next industrial revolution is not industry, it's technology, but it's psychology. It's how we perceive things. Let me just give you a simple example to clearly nail what I'm trying to say, in case you haven't heard me very well. There was a company, I think somewhere in overseas, it's called Shreddies. They produce the morning cereal. So they produce some square things, a morning cereal, but it's that square shape things cereal, okay? So now they were sitting down thinking how they are going to revamp themselves and like some sort of change their own product, okay? So for some reason, I think they hired a marketing company to help them with that. And what that marketing company did, if it's not themselves, they came up with a different line of the morning cereal. And to my surprise, They didn't change the product. They did nothing. Remember, these are the things that as developers we know nothing about, and if I can be honest, we don't care about. Whereas these are the things that occupies the gap between the code and the tech company, the product. These are the things that we need to think around in order for us to take our code to become a successful tech company like Facebook, Google, and YouTube. So they didn't change the product, but at the same time they've changed the product. So what they've said, since the cereal is square, it's square shape, they made an advert where the people who are manufacturing the product, they are in an assembly line, so they are making sure that they are doing the quality control. And the other one noticed that the product is not square but it's diamond, and the person stopped the whole production line and asked somebody about the diamond shape. And then from then they create this whole marketing campaign and advertising and branding around the new product line, which is not square but diamond. As you can see that in order for me, if we assume that this is a perfect square, in order for me to change it to a diamond, I don't really have to move my fingers. I just have to change the shape or the orientation a little bit, and then it becomes diamond. So it was a success. People in the market believed it, and it helped them on generating revenues. So as a brand strategist, I have learned so much about the intangible value of a product. When I was working in the FMCG industry, fast moving consumer goods, I realized that people manufacture product, but that's half of the product. Another half of the product, it's in the psychology, it's in the perception. So when I worked for this company, they were producing a shower cleaner. So they have launched the product. Obviously, at the moment, it didn't take off that well. It was getting there when I arrived, but it didn't have a slogan. So I kept on convincing the owner that we need to sit around and plan about the slogan of the product, because I really didn't understand how could they expect people to understand the product if it doesn't have a slogan. Because now we are talking about an intangible value. If you have a code that is working, then you need to work on creating a perceived value of the code so that people can really understand the code. And a part of it is in the functionality of the code. If you already came up with the code that does everything, that solves every problem, then that's a problem, because now we are talking about psychology, we are talking about brand recognition, we are talking about a certain position in the mind, brand positioning. So if it's going to come up as a wishy-washy, not easy to understand something, it becomes a problem. So what I did with the owner of the product, I told him that let's work on the slogan, and I coined the slogan for the product, and then I helped on trying to position the product to the relevant people. So that included checking who are the ideal users of the product, who are the people who are most likely to buy the product. And it was easy because in all the retail stores, or most of the retail stores, they have got the portal. So in the portal, that's where you go there and you query or you get a report of your sales in the retail space. So meaning that you can be able to get into that portal and download a bit of a spreadsheet of how the sales are doing. So I had to look at those reports, and I have to check which stores and which locations are they, and I have to make a research of those locations in terms of all the characteristics of the location. How many people who are there, racially, are they whites, Indians, or whatever, the age and whatever, so that I can have an idea of those areas. And then from then I had to position the brand, the product, according to the people who are most likely to buy the product. So basically this is what I was trying to say. A product has a value because the product was not understood by the people who are buying it. First of all, it didn't have a slogan, and I really didn't understand. Hence, it was my first thing to work on it. Why must I work on a slogan? Now we are talking about psychology. So we need to come up with some sort of an image of the product that is more than the product. So let's take this, what I've told you, and relate it to code. There is more to tech business or to a successful application than just coding. There is something called an intangible value of a product. So you need to take your product, you need to create an identity for it, and you need to consider all the stages of identity development, not just one. It's just going to be a logo, that is going to be an icon of the app. There is more to identity than that. And then you need to come up with some sort of brand messaging. This app of yours need to be clearly defined, and in its naming and also in its definition, we need to get a sense of what problem is it solving. If we don't get it, then in terms of a definition, it must be clearly defined. If you want to know more about what I'm saying, just Google what is Facebook, what is Instagram, what is Snapchat, what is TikTok, and what is WhatsApp. In those descriptions, you're not going to find one description that fits all. The description might be similar, but believe me, they will be distinctly different. It will also talk about the purpose, why it exists. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about the intangible value of a product. So your code is not different from a product, and it has an intangible value. The reason why you have to learn about these things, it's because of you are a coder, you are the main guy. Obviously, at this moment, you are not a successful company. I am not a successful company. So I must create my product or my code or my application in such a way that it's easy to sell. In closing, we were proposing in another company where I was working also with the product. In another company, we went there to propose a product to a catman, a category manager. The guy looked at the product packaging and he gave us to us and said it's not gonna sell. And we were like, what do you mean? He said, no, it's not gonna sell. And that's it. Like, was that quick? He said, yes, it's not gonna sell. Go and change the packaging and add this and this and this and this. And we were like, but you didn't even taste or look at the product. He said, I don't have to. Here we are talking about the FMCG, fast moving consumer good. The app business, it's not different from that. We've got people who want to consume your product, who want to download your product as quick as possible. So if your product is not presentable, if it doesn't clearly sink into my mind, I don't understand how it is, and when I'm using, I'm struggling. Obviously, I won't pull it from the shelves. I won't go to the Play Store and download it. So the product, the application, it has an intangible value. I'm Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. Thank you so much for clicking this video. If you feel like this video is adding value to your overall understanding of software, coding, branding, marketing, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much.